Hello fellow old schoolers, this is yet another game from the Long Island Cup 2019, and the match we're going to see is sort of a small step away from the most spicy matchups that's on the channel. This one is featuring some decks that are focusing more on winning, so here is JuggerGeddon. And it's primarily built around artifact creatures and a whole bunch of artifacts, actually, black wisers as well. And this mid-range deck will try to get some big beaters out, and after that it will cast Armageddon and try to close the game through that. As we see, it also splashes blue and has access to some blue counter magic, but it doesn't choose to use the regular counter spell because of the double blue requirement. There's a lot of colorless mana sources in the deck because there are so many artifacts. So instead we are opting for power sinks and the flash counter here. And the flash counter will work as a method to stop mostly removal spells from targeting the juggernauts and sushis and etc. So mid-range aggro with land destruction options into it. And there might be some cards in this deck that are hard to recognize. These are beautiful altars made by AS Altars. He is a tattoo artist, I think, from Copenhagen, and he has done a bunch of very nice alterations. And he's also been featured before on this channel. And both of the players here are from Copenhagen and from the same playgroup, Northstar Brewers. So they have easy access to the altars of AS Altars, I think. Facing the JuggerGeddon deck, we have the archetype of the mono blue Turbo-stasis. Adored by some, hated by others, it's a classical prison deck that works through black wisers and locking the mana base down. It uses time elementals. That's a pretty sweet card. It can bounce permanents up, and this can be used in order to make the time elemental itself survive a removal card, or any other card survive, but it can also be used before the Turbo-stasis turn. At the opponent's end step, it can bounce the stasis back up in hand, and then that will allow the stasis player to untap all his mana and then play the stasis again. We also have the reset, and it's used a bit in the same way at the end step of in the opponent's turn, and the stasis player can untap all his lands and thus keep the lockdown going. So what we're going to see here is a very aggressive mid-range deck going up against a more defensive prison archetype. Here we go. And JuggerGeddon is on the left here, with this Turbo-stasis on the right. JuggerGeddon starts out with a turn 1 Blackwise. That's a pretty mean card against a blue prison deck, because he'll have trouble with emptying his hand, as so many of his cards are reactive cards, like counter magic. So yeah, he can just pass the turn and not do much, actually. That'll annoy the stasis player quite a bit, because the black wise will just choke him out, passing the turn back. Then he plays mana short. Does a point of damage to the JuggerGeddon player here and sets him a turn back, and it also removes a card from hand from the stasis player. Okay, so now he has 4 mana sources, but still not enough. He probably has a lot of counter magic in hand, but he can't play any as long as the JuggerGeddon is staying pretty passive. That'll actually work. I think sometimes that can be a valid way to go against a mono blue player like this. When you're on the black wise, just hold back and watch him choke. But also the JuggerGeddon player seems to be a bit mana starved here. Only has two lands. Okay, here's the stasis. So the stasis player, he wanted to wait for the Jugger player to tap out, and this is his opening. It's a strip mine. So the stasis player, we saw he played with a full play set of stasis, so I suppose his tactic here is just using several stasis just to buy time until he can set up a lock. Okay, so now the JuggerGeddon player draws into mana, but the stasis is still holding him back. And as long as the stasis player can keep putting down islands, he can keep that stasis up, slowly evolving his mana base. Okay, at the end step the stasis gets disenchanted. And he could counter it, but then he would have no mana himself to pay for the stasis in his upkeep. So it wouldn't really help, would it? I think that's what he's considering here. Because he would have to use his last 2 mana to counter, either with a power sink or a counter spell. So yeah, he lets it go. And that provides a much needed untap phase for the JuggerGeddon deck here. Let's see if we can produce a big robot here. Yeah, that's a Juggernaut. When you're not playing against artifact removal and there aren't any lightning bolts, those Juggernauts are awesome. They do 5 points of damage, but they only have 3 in toughness, so that makes them rather susceptible to lightning bolts, chain lightning, and they're also susceptible to shatters and disenchants and stuff like that. But against this opponent, where there aren't any of those things, it's a brutal creature. It's better than a Deuce engine in this matchup. Okay. We can see the stasis player actually has a boomerang in hand. If I were him, I think I'd boomerang that Juggernaut. Okay, plays another stasis. Yeah, okay, but he's only at 9 life. Would he dare to take a full punch from that Juggernaut at this point? As another factory that comes, he does. Okay, but at least he can keep the Juggernaut tapped here. Oh man, he's at 4 life. If the other player gets an untap phase now, that'll be game. Passes a turn. Oh, and he disenchants the stasis at his end step. He needs to counter this, otherwise he's dead meat. Oh, he has the boomerang, of course. But still, those factories will just attack him and he'll die from those. He needs to counter this. And then hope to draw into some sort of miracle. Does think an awful lot about it. He might have something different in mind. No, that looks like a counter. Okay, so he counters it, and I don't have a picture of that, but that's actually an altar of a counter spell from AS Altars, I think. I recognize the handiwork. Okay, so he pays, he's just 3 life, pays with the City of Brass in order to keep the stasis up. Another island. Oh man. Just holding the monsters at bay with that stasis. Another island. Really. The suspense here. Another one. Okay, yeah, this is, I suppose. But what can he draw that can save him here? I can't figure. I can't think of anything. Playing another one? Perhaps a Lotus and a Boomerang? No. Through a Library of Alexandria, so he couldn't keep the stasis up, and the Juggernaut could untap and then just trample him. Run him over. So this is the second round of the match, of the set. And this is after sideboard. And we saw the stasis deck he probably has put in. He had Maces of Ith, and I think he had an unsummon and control magic as well. He probably put those things in his deck. So the stasis player's on the play here. An Ivory Tower, okay. He also has, he can also use those boomerangs we saw in his hand before on his own stasis, just to get it back in his hand before his own turn, and then he can untap and put the stasis down again. So the avatar gets disenchanted immediately here. Mox Jet and a Sorrowing. Okay, but there's an ancestor recall for the stasis player. Putting down another Ivory Tower. He probably put those in as well. I can't know. He had the main deck actually. Probably to negate burn players and negate Blackwises, opposing Blackwises, and because he's a blue player, so he has a lot of cards in hand usually. But he gets disenchanted again. At least it draws disenchants. I mean, there are less disenchants for the stasis when he uses some of those Ivory Towers. 8 cards in hand? No, 7 cards in hand. Passing the turn. Only 3 mana at this point. So what can he do? Puts down the Blackwise. Okay. And the JuggerGeddon is just continuing to evolve its mana base. It does surprise me that he puts down so many lands, because he don't need them and he plays with a bunch of Armageddons. But he knows his deck. There's probably a reason to it. Wait, what? Okay, so he plays the Sushi here. The stasis player should probably boomerang it at the end step. No, he counters it. He tries to counter it, but his counter spell gets red blasted. He can't really seem to defend himself against these things. I suppose you could boomerang it now and cast stasis, but it wouldn't be optimal because he'd use too much blue mana on that play. It would be better if he could do it before his turn. Okay, but he chooses to do so. He has a mana drain in hand, so perhaps he'll just wait for the JuggerGeddon to play it again, and then he'll mana drain it. It's a roundabout way to remove it. Okay, so the JuggerGeddon strip mines one of his islands, so now he can't counter anymore. I think, well, I was sitting behind them, besides them, and playing myself. I think he's trying, the stasis player is trying to hear if he can strip mine the other guy's strip mine before that strip mine takes effect. And he can't do that, but the guy talking there is a judge. I said, well, he used to be a judge. He's very knowledgeable about the game. And he also plays in the tournament. CERN is his name. So yeah, he told him that you can't do that. So he gets down the Sushi again, and then he copies it. And the stasis player just can't counter it now because he has strip mined that island. That was a very good play from the JuggerGeddon side. So what to do here? He can't even power sync it because the JuggerGeddon has an untapped land. And he could only power sync for 1. So now there are 2 Sushis staring him down, and we saw how much difficulties the mono blue deck has with removing permanents once they've got into play. Okay, he casts stasis, yeah. Because the JuggerGeddon mana is almost tapped out. There's a Mox Pearl though, so now he can disenchant the stasis if he has a disenchant. 2 Sushis coming over for 8 points of damage, so he's at 12 life, the stasis player at this point. And so far, it hasn't really worked for him, that Blackwise. It hasn't done any damage, and he can't keep the stasis up for long enough. There's another disenchant. That's just the 3rd disenchant in this game. So now he gets the untap phase, has all his mana untapped, and yeah, here they come. 8 points of damage. More land. You can actually cast Armageddon here, and that'll be game. It seems like a rough matchup for the Stasis deck, this one, because he needs so many islands in order to function, and he's against Armageddons and artifacts. He has difficulties in removing them. There's a Time Twister though. I suppose you better move fast. He's at 4 life. Oh, and the one chance he had for that Blackwise to function after the Time Twister, it gets disenchanted. So that's 4 disenchants in this game used, and now they're coming right back into the library. But he needs something here. Those 2 sushis will kill him otherwise. Sometimes I think this Stasis deck archetype will benefit from white just for the removal. But the Turbo-stasis archetype is usually mono blue and tries to establish the stasis as fast as possible by not splashing into anything else. But it does have vulnerabilities against mid-range like this creatures. He has 4 life. He has a Chaos Orb in hand, but it won't do. It won't do. He can only remove a single sushi, and the other one will kill him. Perhaps he has... Okay, draws Ancestral Recall. Yeah, but he lacks mana. I mean, he has plenty of cards, and he has boomerangs and a Chaos Orb, but I wonder what he'll do. Perhaps an unsummon? Yeah, that's an unsummon. Okay, but it's not enough. And it gets red blasted anyway. Never mind. Okay. So that was a bit one-sided. As I said, not the best matchup for the Stasis deck here. But a couple of pretty cool archetypes, I think. JuggerGeddon and Turbo-stasis. By no means cookie cutter decks here. So yeah, pretty cool. We see that. Okay, we see sideboards here. The JuggerGeddon took in 2 red blasts and an extra Blackwise. That makes perfect sense in this matchup. And the Turbo-stasis, we have an unsummon. Oh, and there's an extra Armageddon for the JuggerGeddon. That makes sense as well. Maze of Ith, yeah, as I probably thought he would. And okay, so the JuggerGeddon has taken out a balance and 3 Swords to Plowshares for an Armageddon, 2 red blasts, and an extra Blackwise. And the Turbo-stasis has put in anti-creature cards like Maze of Ith and Unsummon. Anyway, after this, let's try to dip back to the Composition A deck and see how it has fared so far in this tournament. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.